Hi everyone, and welcome back to Not Weave Stitch. I am so excited for today's episode as we have our very first interview with the wonderful Kathryn from Kats Korner Studio. She's a fibre artist specialising in punch needling, and we're going to be talking about her experience, her tips for beginner fibre artists, and so much more. I think you're going to love this episode, so get comfy and enjoy. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast today. I have been so excited to chat to you. It's actually quite nice this season to be actually able to talk to other crafters. So thank you so much for it. And I've always been intrigued about punch needling, and your work is beautiful. So again, thank you so much for doing this today. So I wanted to start off with just finding out a little bit about yourself. So if you could tell us a little bit more about you and how you actually got into punch needling.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, first of all, for inviting me on here. It's my first podcast, so this is very exciting. Yeah, so I've always been inclined to be artistic in some way. In A levels, I did textiles, and it's very experimentative. Back then, I didn't know what punch needle was, had no idea about it. And it wasn't until 2020 when obviously everything happened that year. I was on furlough, and it's actually when I downloaded TikTok around that time as well. And I still to this day can't remember if I saw it on TikTok or on YouTube or how I discovered it, but I discovered punch needle. And at that time, I found it very difficult. It didn't feel like a lot of people were doing it, but I don't know if that's because I wasn't looking for it or it just wasn't as popular at that moment in time. And then I just sort of started seeing more and more of it. And I think it was the idea of being at home, not having anything to do. Everyone was doing something creative. And I've always enjoyed sewing and embroidery, and it was very similar to that. So I just bought a little kit off Etsy at the time and had a go. And then that sort of started spiraling and then opened up this whole world of punch needle, which, like I said, I didn't even know existed. But then as I looked into it, I realized it's been around so long. And it's just like a modern day version of it. And yeah, at the time I struggled to learn how to do it because I wasn't finding the people that were teaching. It was the people that kind of already knew. And I found myself watching these YouTube videos and having to pause each frame to see where the needle's going or how deep things are, scrolling comments, trying to find answers. And then I remember when I first tried to make the rug version of it, I just couldn't do it. And I just nearly gave up and I couldn't work out what was wrong. And I sort of troubleshooted it myself and learned the yarn was getting caught on something. And then from there, it just kept going. I just kept learning, finding more information and just sort of teaching myself ultimately with what information I could find.
That's amazing. I found exactly the same with YouTube videos. So many people use YouTube to try and learn these crafts, but I find with some crafts, they don't show the specifics enough. They race over it. It's not close enough. So I think with a lot of these things, we're having to try and teach ourselves. And I don't know about you, but it's learning through the mistakes, isn't
100%.
it?
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive thing that I want other people to understand, that you have to make those mistakes. I'm a perfectionist. I don't know about you.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
So I want it to be perfect first time around, but that's not going to happen realistically. And when you're into a new craft as well. So I find, I don't know about you, but with me now trying to teach other people stuff that I wish I knew when I first started. I don't know, are you doing that now with your own videos that you create?
Yeah, so I find videos are quite difficult because you'd probably understand as well. It's very easy when you know everything and you forget the little details that really help, and then it's almost like you're given too much information. I find the same when I'm hosting a workshop. I could stand at the front and give all of these tips and stuff, and it's like you're bombarding people with information. And then it's not until they then make a mistake that I think, oh, yeah, this is what you should do instead. And sometimes it's not a mistake, it's just learning something new. But yeah, when it comes to videos, it's very hard to do every single little step that you need in one video, because otherwise you'll be like, oh wait, you need to do this, oh wait, you need to do that. So I do understand trying to watch from a video can be quite difficult because like you say, it needs to be closer here, or it's so difficult.
Yeah, it's trying to remind yourself when you were a beginner, what
Yes.
would I have wanted to know and
Yes.
see? Because you just get so used to it, don't you? You get into the habit of things and then you think, well, wait a second. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here because otherwise people can't catch up. So I think it's an art form in itself, being able to teach people how to do that
Mhm.
craft, because you just get
Yep.
so used to it there. But that's really interesting with learning it through more through like COVID and stuff, those times there. What made you pick punch needling over any other kind of crafts?
Honestly, I have no idea. As a child, I was very flippant between like after school activities. I wouldn't do them very long. I learned a little bit here, a little bit there. And I wish I could remember where I first saw it and why I was so honed in on it, considering I'd never seen it before. Maybe that's why it's almost like that part is just wiped from my memory. It's just always been punch needle. It's so bizarre.
Just connected with you.
Yeah, it's weird. And like I say, I would flip between so many things. And that's the one thing I managed to keep going back to, because I've tried loads of different crafts and a little bit here and there, but none of it ever stuck. But yeah, I don't know what it was with punch needle. I have no idea.
I feel like we're one and the same. I mean, like I've always, because I've grown up with my mum's very arty, so I had like a crafts room when I
Yeah,
grew up, which
yeah.
was amazing.
Drawers, just random stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
exactly that. And so I've done like a little bit from like quilling, painting, whatever it may be, but I'm not a great painter. Like
No, neither.
I can do
No.
the bare minimum painting,
Yep.
sketching. I don't know if you're the same. But yeah, and then I got into doing like macrame and needle felting. And then after that, that's when I got into loom weaving. I hadn't really, I'd obviously had a weaving, but not really looked into it very much at all. And then I was just like, it works, it clicks for me. I get it. I love working with it, but I can't like pinpoint exactly why and when. So I think I don't know if it's just like us fiber artists.
Yeah, I think it might be because throughout school, we're talking from like secondary school mostly, obviously art was a subject you did, and I couldn't stand it. I hated it. I remember one time, I think it was like at the start of secondary school, there was a trip to Kew Gardens, and I knew we'd be going to draw plants. So I was like, no, I don't want to go. And instead, we had to stay in the classroom and draw a plant. And I was like, great. And I remember always getting help with my homework, and my mum was telling me about, I think when I was even younger, because she used to go on the school trips, went on a school trip, and I think I had a meltdown because we had to draw ducks and I couldn't do it. And anything about like drawing and fine art was not for me. And then when GCSE comes about, I think it was GCSE when you could pick textiles, and I discovered this new type of art in a way. And I was like, oh, obviously I still have to draw to an extent, but it's different. Like there's a different way of being an artist. And then as I've got older, and more so now, I've realized it's not that I can't draw. And I don't think it's that anyone can't draw. It's just you can't do fine art. That's the thing that got me, is I couldn't do fine art, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I don't need to be able to do fine art. So yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, that I was so similar that I took fine art, but they expected everyone to be great at
Yeah.
painting and
Yeah.
drawing.
And like portraits.
Yeah, exactly. I can't, any like very realistic stuff, can't do it. Like I basic stuff, yes, I can do, but I'm not great by any means. And if you wanted to do any other types of arts or crafts, they didn't allow you.
No,
It was,
no.
you know,
Yep.
frowned upon, you can't do it.
Mhm.
It's one of those things. And then even like in our school, textiles, they didn't do much. It was sewing,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
sewing.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, again, I could do basic sewing, but that wasn't something that I was really interested in. I really want to work with my hands and work with different materials. So it wasn't obviously until much later on, I was like in COVID as well. That's when I picked up stuff. So it's such a shame in schools that they don't do more.
Yeah. I yeah, I think one of in my experience, it was we had one teacher who was specialized in fine art, and then our other teacher I believe she specialized in textiles, but obviously they would teach both classes. So it's like if you got the fine art teacher, she was always more honed in on the fine art stuff. And when it came to, I don't remember GCSE as much, but when it came to A level, they sort of just let us do our own thing in the end, because it's like you sort of know what you're doing. And I remember when it came to, I think, my final exam, you had to obviously do each step, the experimentation, the development, and then you had to design your final piece. And I remember saying to the teacher, I was like, can I not just come in on exam day and just do what I want? She was like, well, you can, but you should really plan it. I was like, but how can you plan how I'm going to feel in the day? And I literally just went in and just did whatever I felt like and just created something. I wish I still had it now. I never went back and collected any of it, and it's long gone. But it was just like, why not just, it's artistic. It's meant to be what you feel like doing in the moment. It doesn't need to be so planned and like little detail. I just did that in the end. But I think I went to sixth form college, so it was like the teachers did everything. Like it wasn't a college where they just did that one subject. So it was a bit like when we did photography, neither of them really did photography. So it was like you were just sort of learning the basic stuff and whatever else was on top.
Yeah. And I find it's very, to each their own with art. How can you kind of quantify what's really good? Because it's a self-expression and everything like that. So that's why I found it so hard at school. I actually dropped out of my A-level art because it was just not my cup of tea for it. Like I love art, but not that type of art.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always find that really interesting, just hearing from everyone's own journeys with it. But with punch needling, do you remember what your very first project was at all?
Yeah, I think it's in a book somewhere. I basically bought a kit from Etsy, and it came with the hoop, it came with the punch needle, and it came with embroidery floss. So my first sort of step into punch needle was like embroidery. It didn't come with any designs or anything, but the colors were like red, orange, and yellow. So I just did like a flame and just did random colors until it was just this flame basically. And then from there, my projects were more so like the embroidery side of, it's not really embroidery, but the flat side of punch needle. I did like daffodils and roses. So it was very much small, fine art, more like sewing, I guess. I guess that's maybe why I did gravitate to it initially, because it was like embroidery, because it was with embroidery floss and a little needle. So yeah, it was just a little flame and then flowers basically.
And then that hooked you onto it.
Yeah, and then at some point I discovered, like I say, the looped rug side, and then that was it.
Amazing. So let's say for people that are brand new to it, so they have maybe only just heard of punch needling, can you explain what exactly it is?
So punch needle is the tool, but also the craft. So you use a punch needle to make punch needle pieces. So there's so many different ways it can be used, but ultimately what it is a hollow needle that you thread some sort of yarn through, or cotton, or embroidery floss, and as you push it into the fabric and pull up, it creates little loops, which then the fabric then holds those loops in place. So it then can create things like rugs. A lot of rugs are made. It's very similar to like latch hook. So you're basically hooking yarn into fabric, but through a needle, and it's punching into it, which is where the punch part comes from. And yeah, like I say, you can then turn it into rugs, and you can embroider onto clothes if you use the flat side of the flat side rather than the loop side.
I never knew that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so when I was researching about like the history of punch needle, it's not really sure where it started, but there's different groups from different parts of the world, and some of them would use it they would use old scraps, much like I guess latch hooking, old scraps of fabric, and they would punch through and create rugs, or some of them would embroider like onto clothing, because you can sometimes, if you've got a sharp needle, you could do it straight onto some sort of fabric. So they would make embroidered patches, embellishments. And then, yeah, the rugs, obviously, quite big rugs can be made from it. And because the technique of it, and if you're using the correct materials, the loops just hold themselves in the fabric. So when it is a rug, it doesn't get pulled out, if that makes sense. It can't just be pulled back out again because it doesn't get so, like, there's no knots or anything. So people are a bit confused as to how the loops stay in.
That's what I think is amazing with it.
Yeah.
How does it stay in when you're just like going in and out in there? That's always what I've been really intrigued with.
But with the correct tension and the correct, if you use, like, there's wool called rug wool, which is literally really durable, and you use a good quality base fabric, the loops just, the fabric opens for the loop and then closes. So it just keeps it in place. And then, you know, it might get pulled, obviously, like with clothing gets pulled and stuff. But you can just, if you don't back the other side, you can just pull the loops back through and then it keeps it nice and flat.
So the tension is quite like a key part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to make sure you've got good tension at the start so that when it comes off of the frame, off of the hoop, it all stays in place and doesn't unravel.
See, I think this is tension. I always say this in so many different crafts, is such a key point. Like macrame, when I do my loom weaving, when I'm warping the loom, tension is so key. And that was one of the things that it didn't mention in any YouTube videos when I first started. I don't know about you with the tension of that.
No, with tension with the fabric, and then the lack of tension on the yarn is what I had the issue with. I just thought, like, when you sew, you don't necessarily pull out loads because you can do it whilst you're working in a way, or you've already cut the thread. This, everyone was working from the ball of yarn, and I was like, well, the loops aren't staying in. But it was because of the action, it needs to have flowing. It needs to be flowing. I don't know with crochet if you can, because I don't really crochet or knit, but I don't think you have to pull out loads of yarn to keep going. I think the action you're doing pulls it out as you're going.
Yeah.
Whereas touch needle, you can't really do it as you're going. It needs to have that long strands of yarn, otherwise it will just pull back out again.
That was my big mistake, because when I first did it, because I did it like a little kit, and my tension was super tight with the yarn, and it kept on constantly coming out, and I was like, I don't understand what I'm doing here, because I'm doing the technique, but there's something going wrong here with my yarn.
Or it's getting caught on something and you don't realise. It's another thing as well.
It's something that you just so easily overlook, but it's so vital. And I just wish there was, so, like when I first started, that there were more videos on that. They just do like the technique, but they don't talk about these really key things. So yeah, tension, that is super important. So again, thinking for a beginner, what tools and materials would you recommend a beginner to get?
So it depends. When I first started, like I say, I used the really small punch needle, which is tiny. So if you're quite used to using sewing needles and stuff, you're probably okay with that because it's small. If you prefer larger tools, then you would need a bigger punch needle because it's easier to hold maybe for you. So it depends ultimately what project you want to sort of make and what you feel comfortable holding. But probably a good start, I would say now, is the punch needle, the smaller punch needle, some cotton yarn and some monk's cloth and an embroidery hoop, because that's quite similar to embroidery if you're used to that, and it's not too big and bulky like using an acrylic yarn would be, for example. And cotton yarn's a bit easier to use because it's not so flyaway and stuff. So a fine punch needle, some cotton yarn, some monk's cloth, and an embroidery hoop is basically your setup.
Okay, amazing. And with that monk's cloth, I've heard that there's been debates about other people using other types of fabric and stuff. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so from what I've researched, monk's cloth has been made specifically for punch needle. Within that, you can get different counts of it, like different weave of fabrics of different sizes. So obviously tighter would be better for a sharper punch needle and looser for a thicker punch needle. However, it's not the be all and end all. You can use other fabrics. A lot of people go on about Ada. I personally don't, because I think it's just too stiff. It just ultimately doesn't work well for the craft, and the holes are obviously big because it's for cross stitch. But I think if people can use it, they can use it. It's what I always say. If it works with what you've got, then you can just use it because it's just a base fabric anyway. You can use linens and cottons. The thing with monk's cloth is it's very hard to get hold of in person in the UK. It's quite expensive as well, and there are different types. And I think ultimately it just comes down to, if it works, it works. You know, Obviously, monk's cloth, like I say, has been designed for the craft and works well if you've got your good punch needle and your right yarn. But if you're just giving it a go, it doesn't really matter. You could use a pillowcase if you had a sharp punch needle. You know, you could use some linen fabric. It doesn't really matter as long as you're just having a go at it, basically.
I found that with the Ada, it was okay, but then I got a better result with the monk's cloth, definitely. So I completely get what you mean. And there's what I've seen like online, there's been such a debate to and fro what you can and what you can't use. So I was really intrigued with that question.
I think that's just like anything. You're always going to have people on one side and people on the other side. And I just think instead of, it's not like we're being graded for this, or it's not like, you know, it's illegal to use one. It's just preference.
Yeah.
It doesn't, if you try and go too much by the rules, or like the unwritten rules, I should say, you're going to get yourself very worked up, I find, because you're restricting yourself too much. And it's then like, well, I can't make this because I don't have these supplies. Whereas you could make something different if you use different supplies. And yeah, the internet can just get wild. Like, this is right, this is wrong. And I just think it's art at the end of the day. It's meant to be creative and experimentative. It's not meant to be so boxed in. It's just meant to have fun and be free with it.
It's about experimenting. It's what I say to people. Like when I do quilling, they ask me what glues to use. And I'm like, well, this is the glue I use, but other people prefer other glues, which you might like or dislike. So I just say to people, try different things and see what works for you. Again, it depends on the project and what you want out of it. There is a sort of right and wrong, but not a massive right and wrong. Some will work better than others. So, you know, I guess that can apply to this cloth as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I was really intrigued about that because I've heard so much.
Yeah.
So again, kind of coming off from the materials, would you say punch needle is relatively affordable to get started in? Is it massively expensive?
Okay, so like anything, there are cheaper ways, I should say, of doing it. For example, you could get a kit on, let's say, Amazon or something. I did buy one once just to test it out. It wasn't the best, but it worked. I managed to make it work. So it can work it can work. The problem that I say when it comes to kits is a lot of the time these kits are being made by people who don't do the craft. So the things they put together might not work properly. They might all work separately with different things, but when they come together as that kit, it can be very difficult. So you then end up having to pay more and getting more things because it didn't work together initially. If you're going to get a good quality punch needle, that's probably your biggest payment, but then it's done. You don't have to buy it again. Then down from that, obviously, would be the cloth that you use. If you're buying monk's cloth, like with a lot of fabric, it's better to buy it in bulk because it's then cheaper. But if you are to maybe go for like a linen, or I think people use like duck linen or something, it can be it can be cheaper. So it just depends what you want to buy. If you're just doing it for a hobby, you could easily get a kit and just give it a go. If you want to do it a bit more frequently, you might have to then invest upfront initially. And then yarn, we know yarn can be, depending where you get it from, obviously acrylic, you get more, it's a little bit less, and then cotton. But again, that then depends what projects you want to make. Do you want to make something small and detailed? You need cotton. If you want to make something bigger, you can use acrylic. So it can be relatively inexpensive, and it can also be very expensive. But I think you just I always say, do your research properly first before you go buying, because when I started, I didn't really understand the size of yarn or the fiber. So I was buying whatever. And I was like, oh, this is far too thin, or this is far too thick. It's not going to work with what I've got currently. And then I've just kept everything. And then over the years, I've got different punch needles that then now work. So then you can ultimately use your supply. But yeah, definitely researching to know exactly what you want before you go into it, I think, is the best bet.
It really depends on what you're planning to do. Like, are you planning to start like a small business? How much are you investing into it? Is it just like a little hobby? You know, I completely get that. With these kits, do you sell your own kits as well in your business?
I started last year because people were they wanted it. So I did start selling them last year. And then at the start of this year, it sort of dropped off, and I was doing like a kit, I think every month, different design, and it sort of started to drop off. And I was like, okay, maybe people don't seem to be wanting that anymore. And then I started to think, okay, because it's quite a lot of logistics to go into it, like how much you need, how much to charge for it. And then, so I sort of just took them off the website because people weren't interested in them. And then now I put them together, obviously, for my in-person workshops. And now it's more a case of I'm starting to move away again from the supply side of things and wanting to come back towards more being an artist.
Yeah.
So keep things like kits for in-person experiences, because you get more out of it. It's easier. It's not like you're just sending off a kit and hoping someone understands it. You're able to go through it with people. And then moving, for me personally, back towards the artist side of things and making the art rather than selling the tools to make the art.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But I used to do it. I've taken them all off currently, just because people weren't buying them. So I just thought, and I was still marketing them, but it wasn't the same excitement as at the start of the year. It's like it sort of dropped off. Maybe it's the time of year, maybe whatever it was, but I then just took them off for now, basically.
I think it's a difficult climate. I'm sure we'll talk about that later on at the moment, with everything going on and, you know, the cost of living and everything like that. But it's nice that you're focusing more on like the art side of it now. So is it more of like content that you're doing instead of focusing on?
Yeah, I think what happened for me is I was showing my art on TikTok mostly. And then I realized that the more I shared about teaching the art, the more follows I was getting. It started to climb and climb. And then obviously with the lives, people wanted to know about it. And I was like, oh, maybe going down the teaching route and the supplies route is for me, even though initially I knew I was doing it for the art. And then you sort of get caught up in that. And then I was realizing, oh, people want to know about this. I was like, I didn't have someone like me at the start, so it's nice to be that person for other people. And I've met some great people through helping them. And now it's like we don't have to talk about Punch Needle because we've gained that like relationship. And yeah, so then that thing kept going, and then I was like, it's not as fulfilling necessarily when it's just all online and you want to make the art. So then obviously I started trying to push for the in-person workshops, which I've done a few of now. So it's a different experience. You're getting out, you're talking to people, you're making art, and it's a really nice experience. And then more so now, literally, I'm at the moment having this like creative, like, just don't know if it's what's going on everywhere or if it's just the ebbs and flows of life and whatever. But I was like, I want to try and take myself back to being an artist. And I was actually filming like the start of a video this morning, and I was talking about when you go back to like A levels and stuff, and about how involved and how long things took to make. And you were going to museums to get inspiration, you're going to libraries, and now it's just like quickly go on the internet, see what's popular, make something that fits your vibe to try and sell, but then it's not selling. Or going down the teaching route because it's what everyone else wants, but that's not ultimately what I want to do. I want to be able to make art and people buy the art because they like the art, and more so than just selling the supplies for people. So yeah, it's just that's I think what's I'm drawn to is trying to move back towards the art or creating the content. I can still create the content on how to make things, but make it more interesting and make it fun for me and for the people watching.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because I feel like now with social media and everything, we're now in a society where it's go, 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 content, you know, it needs to be fast, what's on trend.
Yeah.
It's for me, especially this time of year, I'm desperately trying to make loads of content, but I've gotten to a point where I'm exhausted now.
Yeah.
And I get to a point where I don't enjoy it anymore. And I want to be able to enjoy what I do instead of just making it for other people. And then you get 5 likes, whatever it may be, 100 views or something.
Yeah.
You're like, well, why did I bother doing that then?
Yeah. I think I'm starting to realize that I talk about this with my partner a lot. We talk about how life is a pendulum. It's always going to swing really far one way, and always it has to then swing back, because that's just the science of it. It has to swing. And I was thinking about it because the other week I was filming 3 YouTube videos in 1 week, and I was having a great time. And then at that moment, I knew I was ahead. So I was like, at this side. And then as the weeks went on, I started to realize, oh, I now have nothing for next week because I've been able to lay back. So now I'm going to have to think and try and get myself back into that mindset. But like with art, you can't really, if you force creativity, you're not only going to get burnt out, but it's not going to work. So much like I said about the exam, like just going in and doing what I feel like doing when I feel like doing it. And then, then you'll swing the other side and you'll be like, oh, I'm so far behind, I've got nothing to do. But then it will slowly start creeping again. And I think that's the same with content. I think, we can talk about forever the attention span and the shortness and snappiness that content needs to be now for it to be engaging and whatnot, for it just to get, like we say, 5 likes or something. But then that sort of negates the artist side of us. Like, we're not doing it for the validation of the likes and the metrics of it. But then that also controls so much of it. I think it's such a hard thing to balance. And I guess in a way it's kind of easier to get your art out there. Like back before social media was so popular, you would have to be in a gallery, or you would have to know people or go to an art college to get known. And obviously social media has changed the game and made it easier to be like exposed to others and all of that. But with that, it brings such a pressure to be so constant, because if you miss that week of YouTube video, people forget about you. I know I'm waiting every week for people's videos to post. If they haven't posted, I'm like, oh, okay. And you forget that lives go on,
Exactly. And then it becomes saturated, with other people, because, then everyone's doing it. And then you feel like you're on this constant like hamster wheel trying to keep up with yourself. Like I've had that in the last month. So I got ahead and I filmed a whole month's worth of content of videos, and I was like, right, I'm on it. Come like October, I can just chill, everything's scheduled. But now I'm like, well, Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm far behind now. I can't relax. And you're just doing it again. And then I'm like, well, now I'm not really enjoying the process, and I feel like I'm rushing it because I don't have the time. And like you say, you kind of lose the nice part of art and being able to be creative, because for us artists and creators, we need to be in the right mood to do it. There's no point in forcing it, because otherwise it won't happen. And I will have these lulls where I'm like, I don't want to touch art and crafts for several days or weeks, and then I'll come back to it like, yes, let's go, I feel really creative again. So like, where do you get your inspiration and your ideas from when you're in that like top creative juices flowing zone? Where did those ideas come from?
It's funny because at this moment I've had in these past few weeks, I've had both sides of this. I've had the trying to think up ideas and just not enjoying it and not being able to find any inspiration. And it wasn't until literally last night when something clicked in my head. And funny enough, it was something my partner's been telling me to do for the longest time. And I'm always like, oh no, like it's not what the people want and stuff. He's like, yeah, but you're not making things for what people want to buy. And then I had this new idea. I was like, okay, I want to start doing bigger pieces and focus on mixing medias and just going back to that experimentation and like the fun of it and just having fun and having a piece that takes longer to do. And I was scrolling through Pinterest and I was just like, nothing's coming to me. Nothing feels like it's my idea. And I was getting really bogged down on the design. And then I was on the phone and I was talking to him. And then I mentioned about this punch needle artist. I really admire her work. It's always so cool. And it's so like, she mixes so many different things together. And I was just looking and she did this one piece that was just like eggs, like yellow yolk and the egg, the white on a blue background. And it was different mediums and stuff. And I realized that I'm trying to push too many new ideas on myself at one time. The new idea is to go bigger and to be experimentative with it. But why can I not just do something simple? And then because I also found a USB the other day from my A-level work, and it had loads of photos of just random objects in the house, like piled together. And I realized that back then they would give you a word, and then you would find an artist that based on that, and then you would take photos of things that are that shape, and then you'd create your own patterns from that. And I realized that the design can be something simple, like one subject a few times, and then just experiment with the textures, because that's the detailed part, is the textures and everything. So when it comes to inspiration, sometimes it's just not there. And sometimes it can be a walk, it can be just a random thought or a word from a conversation. I try my hardest not to find too much of my inspiration from social media, because it's, even though I strongly believe that no idea is an original idea, everything has been recycled somehow.
Yeah.
It's very hard that when you then make something, you're like, oh, but it feels inspired by this, but everything is inspired from something.
Exactly.
And everything can then coexist. But then we also have, it's just social media. We then have the side of it where it's like, oh, that's like so-and-so's work, and it's what do people always, it's not copyright, or there's another word people use, on plagiarism or whatnot. And it's just like, everything is so similar anyway.
Yeah.
And unless it's a direct copy, then cool, I get it, if it's a direct copy. But you're allowed to be inspired by something and tweak it and twist it to make it something new.
Exactly. Making it your own. You know, you can be inspired by someone else's work, but then doing it in your own way, or using a different material or something like that.
Think about the amount of times we watch a TV show and we're like, oh, this is so similar to so-and-so show, because everything, it's like perfumes, ultimately. Everything at the end of the day, there's only a certain amount of ways you can make something for it to smell different. And then things are going to start smelling the same, because, or like cakes or whatnot, there's only so many ways you can do things differently, but the foundation of things are ultimately very similar, because that's what works. So,
and a lot of it is like where it's come from, how it, like, you know, where that inspiration comes from, what it means to you, how you express yourself, how that art made you feel. There's so many things that go around it that a lot of the time you can't actually see in the artwork, but you know it, you feel it. So yeah, that's really interesting. It's so weird how we go from like these little, it's like a roller coaster ride, isn't it?
Or like the tide. I always say, my thing at the moment is like the tide, it has to ebb and flow, because that's just the nature of it, and that is the nature of life. Things are going to, and I saw something, another quote is, you have to feel good in both the bad and the good side of life. You have to, I can't remember what the quote is, I've said it so many times, but
you got to go through the lows and the rough times and the no inspiration times in order to get back up again. Like
I feel like you have to appreciate those bad times, and I know it's easier said than done, especially when you're in those like lulls. But so many times a lull has sparked something new, or something's happened in that lull which has created something bigger on the other side. But then that can also flip, something great can happen, and then something bad can come from that. You have to almost be content in both sides of things, and find the balance almost.
It's riding that wave, riding through the storm of it. It comes with everything, but definitely in particular with art. Like, I just get these days where I'm just like, I'm not inspired. I just want to sit here and not think about things. And then other days I can't, I get so like shaky. I don't know how to describe it. And I've got so many ideas. I need to write them all down now, because I'm just like overwhelmed. Like, I'll have a dream and it pops up in a dream or something like that. Or like you said, I'll go out for a walk and I'm like, oh my God, that's beautiful. I want to do something on that. You don't know when it's going to hit you. I think it's one of those things, very fluid. It's always like changing, highs, lows. You've got them all there. It's good to also hear someone else like in the same sort of thing.
I think that's, I saw it somewhere else the other day, and it was saying about the a lot of people are feeling the same. It's just you, because you're, especially if you're at home and you're in your own world, you feel like it's just you going through this, but it's just that's just how life is. Like, I always go back to a tide. A tide has to come in and then go out, because that's the nature of it. Trees have to grow their leaves and lose their leaves. Like, it's just the science of the world. Things go this way and then that way. And you have to see your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions the same way as well, because ultimately that's how it's going to be. It's going to be one way and then the other way. Same with your creativity. It's going to be sparked and then it's going to be dull. And when it is dull, just do something that isn't creative, you know, and allow yourself to do that as well, which I think is the hard thing.
Yeah. Kathryn, you are inspirational. I'm loving this. Honestly, I could just carry on like all day with all of this. This is amazing. So
just remember the quote.
Oh, please.
Yes, it's this too shall pass. So it can be used in good sense and bad sense. So if you're in a great situation, you have to remember that this will pass and it's not going to be great forever. And then if something bad's happening to you, this too shall pass. At some point, it will pass. So it's just understanding that both feelings will pass at some point and trying so hard to find the comfort in that it will pass. And even if it's an amazing thing, it's going to pass because it will.
And I think especially beginners need to hear this because it's not going to be a smooth ride.
No, we can't. I think where I've noticed on social media nowadays, people just want the answers now. They want to be able to do things now, and they don't have the experience of experimenting and the learning process. It's just like they want the end goal. And it's like, no, there's a lot of steps that have to go into things before you get to the end goal. You have to work for things and try out different things to actually, it's not just going to be there. But social media has shown us it can just be there, even though it's not, it's fake.
Yeah, you see all the perfect final results. And it's like, well, what went into that? Like when I teach some workshops, I call it pancakes. And I say to people, it's like making pancakes. The first few pancakes you're going to make are going to be awful.
Yeah, I literally, I was making pancakes the other day and the postman came and he was like, oh, it smells like fried bread. I was like, oh, I burnt my pancakes. And he was like, how'd you burn pancakes? I was like, because they tell you have to wait for it to bubble.
Yeah.
They didn't bubble, but by the time I took them over, they were already burnt on one side.
Exactly.
And then the next batch just burnt straight away because then it's too hot.
And you can make pancakes a million times and then it'll go, you know, you'll have a rubbish pancake again. It's those things and little tweaks that you have to do. So that's why I tell people, think pancakes because it's not going to be perfect first time around and you're just setting yourself up for failure then. You know, if you think, right, I am going to fail, I am going to make mistakes, I am going to have times where I'm going to feel really down, I'm not going to be inspired. But those all add to the experience and then, you know, that's going to help you later on.
Yeah, I think as well, because we're creatives, like I think we mentioned earlier, ultimately we kind of all are perfectionists. Yeah. So I found when I'm teaching people, I'll have my examples and they'll be like, oh, but mine doesn't look like this. I was like, oh, first of all, this example was using a different yarn, so kind of ignore it. But also, yes, but I've had the experience of knowing like how far to put my stitches. This is the first time you're doing it and it's not going to look like this. But if I was to show you my first pieces, they'd be worse because I didn't have anyone teaching me. Yeah. So the fact that you're actually here in person doing something creative with your hands is more than anything then, you know, that people should be proud of. But we do, I think, when we are creatives, especially if we're within like a certain niche, like a fiber or something, you feel like you should be able to do things. Yeah. But I know I can't crochet. I've tried. I know I can't do it.
Thank you. I'm exactly the same. I'm so jealous of people that can do it. I can't. I get so angry with myself.
Yeah. I just think it's just not. I just think how, like, or knitting. How do you know what? I just don't understand it. And do you know what? I don't want to understand.
That's for other people. You know, and this is what I want in the podcast. At some point, I'm going to have someone who can do like knitting and crochet and speak to them and ask all my questions. But I know it's not for me. Other people can do that. Like you said, we're in our own little lanes here, and that's fair enough. This is what I say to people: try different crafts and find your craft. Like, even if it takes, I don't know, 10, 20 different crafts to get there, that's fine.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things. But this leads on really nicely to: are there any most common mistakes that beginners make in punch needling?
Yeah, yarn tension, definitely. People have too much tension on the yarn and not having the cloth tight enough. And then I think the other thing is it's really hard to explain. And I don't think I thought of this when I did it, but they always say to me, am I going in every single hole? You know, like cross stitch, you go in every hole. Yeah. And I sort of say, no. Like, I just go wherever looks the same distance, and if the needle doesn't go in, I kind of force it a little bit because the fabric sort of opens up. So I think, yeah, the biggest mistake, sorry, is too tight yarn tension, not tight enough cloth tension, and making your stitches too long or too short. So if you're lifting your needle too far, it's going to just come out. If you're not pushing your needle all the way in, it's not going to stay in. I'd say they're the main bits, because otherwise you start going into like length of needle and, you know, there's so many. But yeah, you need to have loose yarn, tight cloth, and your needle needs to go all the way down and only skim when you come up to do your next stitch.
And I think it's important, I don't know about you, but I think it's important to say to people, make those mistakes so you can see what it's like, so you know how to correct it.
Or just like when you start, just get a piece of cloth and try different stitch lengths, try different, like, just so you can understand how the needle works and how far you need to do your stitches, and try different yarns and what you've got before you commit, which I'm terrible at.
It's like, I always say, like, so not only like pancakes, but I call it detective work. So I say, you know, study whatever you've just done, your project or whatever it is, or your stitches, and then go, well, with those, what can I then improve? What were the issues? What were the mistakes? How do I fix it? Because that's a massive thing. How do I fix this? Because I think confidence comes from making the mistakes and then knowing how to fix it. And I think that's just a major thing. And again, it's so hard to say, because I know I'm a perfectionist and I'm like, you know, it would be great if it was perfect, but it's not. We don't live in a perfect world. So those are mistakes, but make them and then learn from them, which I think is really, really important there. So for me personally, because I've got a background in wildlife documentary filmmaking, so I'm very into the environment and stuff like that. And I know with the fibre arts, we can be a little bit better in terms of like sustainability and stuff like that. With your art, do you ever think about sustainability or the environmental impact? Are there ways that people could maybe, like, I don't know if they can recycle any of the materials, if they can purchase some better yarns or anything like that? I don't know if that's something you think about with your work.
Yeah, I think I personally, it's something that I always go through different parts of my life. I've looked into like more sustainable aspects, and I've been on both ends of everything. When it comes to punch needle, I am also a bit of a hoarder. I always feel like there's a purpose that I could use things for. So when it comes to recycling, I try and save as much of the cloth scraps as I can. If I'm using a big frame, what I see people do is like put one thing in the middle, and then they've got all that extra cloth. I either will fill that cloth, or I will take it off and I'll cut as close to the design as I've done. So I've still got space for like my small hoops. I've got different size hoops, so I can reuse different pieces of fabric. And then any fabric that can't be used, much like pastry, when you're cutting out with pastry, I will put in a bag, and then I will use it as stuffing for pillows. Like, this is stuffed with random stuff.
That's a great idea.
The thing, and then like yarn scraps as well. I always save my little yarn tails, and I will then stuff them as well into things and find ways of repurposing it. I think that's, yeah, so the fabric, so the felt, the cloth, the yarn, and then obviously you can buy different yarns. Obviously there's acrylic, there's cotton. It then comes back to the price point of things. As we know, things that are maybe a little bit better, especially environmentally, are going to be a little bit more expensive, and if you're then selling it, it then adds the price. But it just depends on where your price point is, obviously. I think also it's then the overconsumption as well. We get a little bit crazy with buying yarn. I definitely did it at the start. I've got far too much acrylic yarn, which is where I'm now trying to use that for things. Just because it's cheaper, it's bigger, it's so accessible, it's so easy to get. So yeah, I think what I try and say to people when they've just started out and they've bought loads of supplies, I'm like, don't throw anything away. If you want to return it, that's fine, but don't throw things away, because you will find a way to use that in something else. all your scraps, like I say, especially with monk's cloth. If you're buying monk's cloth, it's so expensive. Just to use one small piece and throw the rest away is just whoa. Like,
you're throwing away money there.
Yeah, literally try and keep what's left, because you could use it for something else. You could make something smaller, so it's usable.
And I think it's also knowing what you've actually got. I've talked to so many people where they buy a huge amount of like yarns, they'll stuff it away in a cupboard, and then they'll go buy more because they've forgotten what they've got. And I mean, I'm guilty of doing that when I first started. So I think a big thing as well is being organised, knowing what you have, and trying to get through that.
Yeah. Or because I think so I buy my cotton yarn online, because I know it's always going to be in one place. Acrylic's a bit easier to get anywhere, but cotton I do struggle with. And then you have things like, you want to spend so much to get free delivery, and it's like you're then just adding things in just for the sake of adding things in.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't check. I just think, I think I need yellow, I think I need pink, I'll get a few of these, and then I realize, actually I need a green, so it's just,
and you've just got multiples.
And then you don't have what you need. I have to make another order. And I think keeping some sort of stock and not getting too excited about just buying,
which is so difficult.
Yes.
They bring out so many lovely things now.
But then I think then it's quite nice to then go to like a charity shop. So annoyingly, my charity shop that had loads of like haberdashery stuff is gone, and those sort of shops have just gone anyway. Like we have the chains, and that's it. We don't have any shops that are solely. We used to have a massive one in town, massive, like rolls of fabric, everything, but they're just completely gone now. Even to the point where in, I think, A levels, you had to go to one of the shops to buy. They told you to buy certain samples of things. You can't do that now because they're not around. So there's another punch needle artist I follow, and she does a lot of her art with secondhand fibers, like wool and stuff like that. And I think it's just so cool to go to something like a charity shop, buy your secondhand supplies and making something from those, because it's someone's waste almost that they can't use or don't want to use or whatever. And then you're repurposing it, and then you're making your art based around what you can find, rather than buying everything and then trying to make like something from all of these supplies that are just, you then got the same stuff. And I think also going somewhere like a charity shop makes you experiment with different things, because you're seeing different fibers of yarn and different fabrics that you could then maybe use, and it's bringing back that experimentative side of things as well.
Yeah, I love that idea. I hadn't even thought about that. That's a really good thing. And you go back to that kind of being artistic again, and like you say, getting experimental with it, with something. I mean, they might not sell that yarn anymore, if people had it for years and stuff like that, and it could be really, really interesting. So I love that idea. That's really, really good. I'm going to do that myself now.
And I don't know too much, but what I think is true, things from the past were made different. So things were made to be sustainable, or not sustainable, sorry, but it's sustainable in the sense of lasting. They're meant to be long lasting. The fibers that are used are long lasting. And now it's just like everything is so one use and it's done. So to find those like different fibers and, like you say, things that aren't around anymore is so interesting, because it just feels nice,
100%. I'm going to have a look now. I never thought of doing that. That's a really good idea. I love that. So is there a particular project that you are proud of? Is there one that really stands out?
Oh gosh.
Throwing in a curveball here. Or is there something that you're working on at the moment that you really love or that you're really enjoying?
So I think I feel like what I'm going to work on next is going to be the thing, because it's trying to go back to, like I say, the artistic side of things, the experimentative side of things. I think what I struggle with is understanding what I've liked over what everyone else has liked.
Yeah.
So I will like pieces, and there's no interest in it online, whether that's sales or even just interest in general, like people liking it. So to think of something I'm really proud of, It's difficult.
I find it so difficult because I don't know if you're like, we're really harsh critics of our
100%.
own work.
Yeah, 100%.
I really like it, but then I think, oh, but will other people like it? And oh, I can see a mistake there, or I could have done that better.
Yeah.
Like I've got a massive loom weaving wall hanging, which I love, but I know where the mistakes are.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, yeah, I'm proud of it, but I wouldn't like sell something like that, or I don't want people looking too closely at it, because then I think they'll see the mistakes and go, oh, that's a bit rubbish.
And then you get someone close to you to look at it. Like I'll get my partner and he'll be like, oh, this is amazing. And I'm like, yeah, but can you not see those mistakes? But he won't know those mistakes to spot them. But as an outsider, everything I make is amazing. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want. I mean, I don't feel like this is true. And it's like even just people on the internet, they'll be like, oh, your work's so cool. And I'm looking at it like, no, there's quite a few. It's not perfect, but it's not going to be. It's handmade. It's not going to be perfect.
And that's the thing. I think it's trying to keep on just reminding ourselves it's handmade. We've put that time into it. There will be mistakes. It's fine. Like we've tried. We're gonna it's trying to be nice to ourselves, but it's so hard, especially at the moment. I think it's so hard to not be our own worst critics a lot of the time.
I think going back to I don't know, but going back to what we were saying, like now it's you're on show to everyone on the internet and everyone's got an opinion and that. But I think going back beforehand, like I'm not, like I said, I'm not a painter. I don't really know about galleries, but I feel like there's a level of there's always some sort of level of opinion when it comes to art, and we say art is subjective ultimately. So I think there's always been artists having a problem of getting their art out there and finding the people that like it. But one thing someone I used to work with who is an artist, she said to me, and it always stuck to me, she always said, Kathryn, if your art doesn't sell, it's because it's not going to the right people. The people that aren't buying it don't deserve your art. It's the right people will find your art. And I think that's so true. Like, it doesn't matter how you price your art, doesn't matter any of this. The right person that feels connection is going to buy it, because that's what art is. It's a subjective thing. And the majority of the people might not be interested in it. That's because it's not for them. It's meant for that person that you haven't found yet. And yeah.
I love that. I think that's so true. They'll be like, I'll make like several different things, and then I'll go to my other half and I say to him, which one do you prefer? And he'll pick the one that I like least.
Oh man. Yep. All the time.
And I'm just like, well, I don't really want to, post that one up because I don't like it. But then you're saying that's really good. And it's, everyone's got their own personal preference.
Exactly.
So,
and again, that's one person's opinion, and that it's just, but it's good to have someone that is the opposite to how you feel, because it helps you to, it's a bit like in an argument or something, when someone's got a different opinion, it helps you understand that other side. So he would then explain, oh, this is what I like about this piece. And I might be like, oh, okay, I didn't see it like that.
Yeah.
And like I say, with this whole moving to bigger pieces, he's been saying it for the longest time. And I'm like, no. The amount of times I have completely flipped what I'm going to do. And it's just like, at some point I'm going to have to tell him, oh, yes, you mentioned about me doing this. I think I'm going to start doing it now. YouTube's a big one. He told me so long ago to start doing YouTube. And I was like, no. I barely even used it myself, let alone making videos. And now I'm like, I mean,
you're right.
Yeah, I do believe timing is everything. Like, it obviously wasn't meant for me. The moment I joined, it was obviously something aligned that it was meant for me then. But I was like, yeah, I kind of see why you were pushing it now. It just has to have its timing.
I'm 100% like, if it's meant to happen and it happens at that point, there was a reason why. I'm very much into like, there is a reason for everything. It's given to you because it's meant for you at that time. Like, even if you didn't do it before and you come to it later, maybe you weren't ready. I don't know, whatever, maybe you weren't confident enough, maybe you didn't know enough, or whatever it was. Like, I always very much believe there is a reason why for it. So just before we finish, where can people find your work? So what social media platforms are you on?
I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, which is obviously linked with Instagram, YouTube, they're the main 4 platforms, and I should be across all of them. Kats.corner.studio, I think, is the same. I managed to get the same across all 4. And then obviously there's the website, which is just katskornerstudio.com, which is then everything's linked on there. It's all sort of like interlinked. Or the easiest thing is to go on to like Instagram. There's a link in my bio, and I've just hyperlinked everything in one place. Workshops, my shop, YouTube, everything's there. I don't think I'm anywhere else that's useful for people.
Amazing. And you've got like the videos you do, the possibility of doing like workshops nearby, what you're doing and stuff like that.
Yes. So on TikTok, I've got 2. You can have playlists. There's 2 playlists there. So if anyone's interested in actually learning, I've just put in any videos that have some sort of tip or trick, and then you can just go through the like short form and learn different bits. And then there is the YouTube channel where things are longer form. So there's a playlist on there for how to punch needle, more like in-depth information. But then I'm sort of, majority of the YouTube is moving towards just life, just me being creative and challenging myself to little challenges. So whether I use like one color of yarn and make something, and then within that you can learn how to use different techniques within punch needle to create different textures and stuff like that. And then workshops, I've put on my website, there's a section for workshops. So I've got my upcoming workshops, and also like contact form if anyone's interested in me hosting a workshop in their location or with their people they've got put together, or just any questions and stuff like that. It's all there.
Amazing. Honestly, everyone needs to go look at her work. It's gorgeous, and your videos are so useful, because for me, I've always had an interest in like punch needling, but there has been like so many questions like what we've answered today that is really going to help me. So I'm going to go back into it again for sure. So thank you so much. This has been incredible, and thank you so much for doing it. You have been amazing. It's been so lovely to talk to you. So thank you so much, Kathryn.
Thank you for asking me to do this as well.
So I hope you all enjoyed that episode. I will be linking Kathryn's social media channels into the description of this episode. So if you want to look at her work, take a look at some of her videos, or maybe take part in one of her workshops, please do click on those. If you want more episodes like this, then please do consider joining my Patreon. It is under Gisela Nartin, and on there you'll find a great little community where we have a chat about craft, and there's also bonuses when you are joining different tiers. And it really does help with this podcast. It helps us grow and also be able to interview more crafters and inspirational people like Kathryn. So thank you so much for all of your support already, everyone. And I will see you in the next one.